Good evening, everyone. My name is Sakshi Kesarwani, and I'm one of the members of the Life Science Education Trust. And on behalf of whole LSeT team, I would like to welcome you all, everyone present for the webinar on the topic captive management of reptiles. We have one of our renowned speaker, Gerry Martin, sir, present over here between us, who will be enlightening us with the topic. On behalf of whole LSeT team, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you, sir. Welcome, sir. Gerry sir has been working with reptiles on and other wildlife for over 25 years now. He began his career at the Madras Crocodile Bank Trust under Romulus Whittaker, where he was part of the team that first bred and successfully raised king cobras in captivity in India and has worked with a vast variety of other reptiles and amphibians. In 2000, he became National Geographic Channel's first Indian adventurer and featured in numerous shows and documentaries. Today, his focus is tackling the snake bite crisis in India and developing platforms by which local stakeholders can gain from and support conservation in the localities. He is co-founder of the Liana Trusts and spearheads ecological and behavioral research that has direct implications on our understanding of the dynamics of snake bites, as well as enables and assists in venom research around the country. He is setting up a serpentarium that will focus on research as well as providing high-quality venom-free charge for the production of antivenom. Gerry sir has co-authored the guidelines for snake rescue in Karnataka and is developing means to reduce human-snake conflict in rural landscapes. Now, I would like to ask Gerry sir to give his insights on the topic captive management of. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sakshi, and everyone at the LSeT team. So we're going to be talking about reptiles in captivity. This is a presentation that I actually put together for the Zoo Authority of Karnataka. So some of the things are more zoo-oriented, but I think that since there's a lot of people who are interested in reptiles now, it holds a lot of relevance to everything that that you'd probably like to do. If there's anything in between that you would like to ask or say, please feel free to raise your hand and we can ask while there's something about a slide or something. So for one thing, it's really important for us to treat animals not as props and toys, but as living beings. So anyone who keeps an animal has the obligation and responsibility to keep it well. So the first thing that before we get any animal, I think it's better to plan what we're going to get, and it's very, very important to ask why. And the reason could be as simple as you just like the color, but it's good to know what it is and why you wanted what it is, and then how you're going to keep it. So the picture you see is actually a king cobra here. He's 14 feet long, and before we got him, we actually created his enclosure, checked all the temperatures and everything, saw that everything was working fine, and then actually got him and released him in that. So it's really important to think about everything before you get the animal, because otherwise, once you get the animal, you're trying to catch up with problems that have arisen. So it's good to have everything well set before that. So when you look at why, I mean, there are various reasons. For zoos, of course, there's conservation and education and all, but for individuals, it's usually just appeal and hobby. So for that purpose, it's important to also make sure that we're not prioritizing our own excitement over something that's like the well-being of the animal or even conservation. So yeah, now how is very important. When we go into, when we're looking at what we're going to get, say we decide we want to get a leopard gecko, for example. There are a few things, well, in India, we actually shouldn't have leopard geckos because they're protected by law. But let's just say a gecko, a gargoyle gecko or something like that. Now, it's very easy to get all kinds of details and information and everything online. What would really be good is if we decided we wanted to get a gecko, not to set up the bare minimum of what is needed for it, but to try and give it something more, something that which is a more enriched space with things that can be changed around, with all kinds of other aspects that would stimulate it a little more, keep it healthy, lots of ranges in temperatures and humidities. So it's also very important to make sure that our animals don't escape. So animals need to be, I mean, we have to make sure that it's escape proof. We need to make sure that we have a supply of food before we bring our animals, or at least know where to get the food from. Otherwise, quite often we'll be stuck with an animal and then not be able to feed it because we don't have enough backup of food. Now, enclosure design is, for me personally, a lot of stuff inside the enclosures. I personally like to have bioactive enclosures. Now, there are various kinds of enclosures. There are bioactive enclosures, which means that you actually have set up the entire ecosystem from the soil and the microbes up to the pet that you have inside it. It takes a lot of work to do that, and it also takes a lot of time to set up because different layers have to set first, and then you can bring in the next ecological layer. But you can also have naturalistic enclosures which don't really have an entire ecosystem, but they could have either live or plastic plants, either real or imitation rocks, but stuff that looks appealing. And then you can just have enclosures that are completely they're not actually, they don't look natural at all, but that doesn't mean that they're not good for the animal, because there are various species that require different things and they don't really need for it to look like the wild. So if you were to keep one of the desert species, for example, a nice dry substrate would be good, a good place to hide. If they were climbing species, then something that they could climb on. And then, of course, everything that you need for the light and temperature and humidity for your animals. Those are the three things that are most important when you're keeping any reptile, is the correct spectrum of light. And all of them need some level of UVA and B. Most of them need infrared A as well. So it's important to make sure that the light that you're providing them has these in the spectrum, or have separate bulbs for these things. And then, of course, temperature is very important to maintain a nice range in temperature so that you're not deciding for the animal about what's good for it or not. The animal is able to decide for it. So you give it a nice different range and different places, cold and hot, cold and dry, hot and dry, hot and wet. So those kind of things. So there's everything that it can choose from. And ventilation is also very important, especially for a lot of the species that require higher humidity. That's where the challenge comes in, because having a high humidity means usually you have to cut down on the amount of ventilation that goes in. But the problem with high humidity and not enough ventilation is that a lot of things like fungus and everything will start growing inside, and you don't want to, and even bacteria can grow much better in spaces like that. Again, personally, I like to replicate the wild in our enclosures here, especially for things like pit vipers and the large snakes like king cobra and all that. We have very naturalistic, very live and very wild looking and natural looking spaces with live plants, active mud, everything that is a complete. There's pretty much a complete system inside there. But even you can even take inspiration from the wild and change things around. But it's really important to, if you know where an animal, the kind of space that an animal comes from, it's really important to be able to simulate the important aspects. So security for an animal has to feel secure. If it doesn't feel secure, it will constantly feel stress, and that will slowly destroy the health of your animal. So giving it, one, all the ranges it needs in all the temperature, light, and humidity, and two, also making sure that it has some place that it can go to feel safe and secure. So again, these are choices that you need to make. Do you want a water element there or just a dish? This is a pit viper enclosure that we've created. It's actually a lot wilder now since this is when we just planted the plants. This is when we just the plants, but we also have a waterfall in there, a pond behind that bromeliad, There's live fish, various insects, crickets, wood lice, springtails, everything inside this enclosure. So it's a very large enclosure, and there are 5 pit vipers in it. And especially at night, you can see them behaving very naturally. In the daytime, they all have different places that they go to. So it's keeping them very healthy. They feed very well. They're in good weight. They've started mating now. So hopefully in the next season, we'll also have young that will from them. And that all these snakes are there for our research on snake bite and venoms. Now, when you think about lighting, a lot of folks will just put a light, but the light is really not enough. We need to have the right kind of bulb. You can see here, they have 2 different kinds of bulbs. One is a UV strip, which is specifically for UV. So the animal can get UVA and UVB without it actually getting hot there also. They also have a heat lamp, but you do get a lot of lamps where these things are combined. So for example, mercury vapor lamps have the entire spectrum, and they also provide heat. So if you have an animal that requires like a bearded dragon that requires really intense basking, then something like a mercury vapor light is very, very good for it. Of what you need to know for your animal. There's lots of species that require different things, but something as common as a bearded dragon even, you can see all the reasons it might need to bask. Also, for the different reasons, it might need to bask to different extents and different temperatures. So for example, to capture D3 through UV radiation, they probably don't need any heat, right? So you can just give them UV for that. But if it was for thermoregulation, especially after a meal or whatever, they'd need higher temperatures. When females are ovulating or straight after they've mated, females need a lot higher temperature to go and bask to until they're ready to lay their eggs. So all these things are very important. Parasite management is key for animals, even like turtles, for example. Very often turtles are just kept in water without access to intense heat and basking, and no place to completely dry up. So that's the kind of space where fungus would set in, sores would set in, and lots of ectoparasites could also get onto their skin directly. For reptiles, especially for reptiles, because they are poikilothermic animals, they rely on their surrounding temperatures to control the temperature of their bodies. Now, one of the things that we're finding with our research in snakes in the wild is that many of the snake species that we see actually require much hotter temperatures than we usually give them in captivity. So, for instance, Russell's vipers, with our research in the wild, we found that very often they're maintaining their bodies for long periods of time at up to 37 degrees centigrade, which is a temperature that we never thought we'd ever need to give a snake. But they do need that for some time, and it definitely helps with their immunity and their general health. King cobras, for example, when we bred king cobras in '96, we had never we didn't even allow the temperature to hit 30 because we thought that would be too hot for them. But when they were radio tracked and we got body temperatures from them, we found that very often they were maintaining their temperatures at 34 degrees. So they need at least the option to be able to go to a hotter space at some point. So it's really important to give them that option. Personally, I prefer not to have a general ambient temperature. I prefer to have a place where it's hottest, then it can move to a place where it's cool. So that creates a nice range in temperature. Also, do you want to heat the substrate underneath, or do you want to heat the air, or do you want to heat a particular like a basking spot or anything? These are decisions you make based on based on the animal that you have and the kind of space that you have with it. So this is a chart that shows the different. This is a chart that shows the different, basically the spectrum of light, and you can see where the visible light is. but they on the lowest end of the spectrum, they need UV, both UVA and UVB, and on the higher end with infrared, they definitely need infrared A for sure, certain. So infrared A, they found that actually for much of the thermoregulation, especially for larger animals, infrared A actually penetrates more, so they're able to heat the core of their bodies, not just the surface. And so that's very important for animals that need to keep the large animals, especially, that need to be active. So they get a short while where they're able to bask and or heat up in whatever way, and then they need to carry that heat and hold that heat for a while. So for that, they need something in the spectrum that is more penetrative and is able to heat them much for deeper in the body. Feed as well. So generally for pets, for pet reptiles, feed is quite easily available nowadays. There are, however, some things that we do need to be more careful about. For example, chameleons, you don't want to be feeding them too much mealworms and superworms, because the level of chitin in their exoskeleton is just too high, and that's hard for them to digest and might actually lead to impaction, which means that they won't be able to pass stools, and that would kill them in the long run. So it's very important to get the right kind of feed for them. For all kinds of reptiles, for turtles as well, tortoises, it's important to have not just pellets, for example, but a nice wide range to give them a nice wholesome diet. And changing it around every now and then is also very, very important. This is possibly the most important aspect of keeping pretty much any animal, but definitely reptiles in captivity, is that every day doing the same thing, and that becomes very, very tedious. You need to make sure, and especially if you have more than one, if you've got a few reptiles or a few pets or whatever, you need to make sure that all of them are fine every day. So there needs to be fresh water for almost all species every day. You have to clean out fecal matter as soon as possible. Check the animal to make sure if there's anything's looking wrong with it. Look for ectoparasites. That's a really, really important thing. With us, where we've got lots and lots of animals in captivity, what we do is we have a roster that sort of goes on rotation, and we collect fecal samples, and we do microscopy here to see if they have any endoparasites also. But it's really important to maintain an understanding of your and a clear knowledge of your animal's health at all times. So it's very then looking at the weight, for example, is very important. Make sure that they're feeding okay. But there are also some animals that just won't feed for a long time. For example, ball python adults will just one day stop eating and sometimes not eat for months. But as long as they're not losing weight drastically, that's usually fine. So, but you keep trying to feed them, and then suddenly one day they'll start again. So when you basically, this is not so important if you just have one or two animals, but if you've got a lot of animals, then having systems that work is very, very important. Systems for checking for disease and injuries, systems for in fact, even the systems that are at play, if you've got an automated system for light and humidity, for example, make sure that it's working properly. Make sure that whatever, if there's a filter, that it's clean. Make sure your bulbs are working effectively. All these things are very, very important. The other thing also to make sure is with wear and tear, very often doors, lids, joints, locks, they all start becoming loose. So don't wait for them to fail before you start, before you fix them. So this is a picture of an endoparasite, and an egg is also. If you look at the bottom at the right, that's an endoparasitic egg that was found in one of our snakes. So then the simple thing is you just deworm it after that, and then they're fine. Depending on what deworming you give, either you give it once or you have to give a follow-up dose as well. But generally, they're fine after this. The kind of space you want to keep them in. Do you want the these are all zoos, of course, but you can decide what kind of. It's also nice to have them in a really nice looking space, even if it's just one animal at home. So, and these are all decisions that you can make, and there's all kinds of things available now. Or you could even build your own. Pinterest is a great place to get ideas for your animals. This is a really great setup for bearded dragons, if any of you have bearded dragons. And I'd like to end with one really important note. So, especially since most of these pets are exotics, it's very important to not allow them to escape. It's also not a good thing to release them into the wild. So that's something that you must keep, um, must be very particular about. Releasing these animals into the wild could lead to an ecological disaster here. So no
Have a
animal.
long-lasting impact on the life of all the participants present over here. So now I would like to request the participants present over here to ask their queries one by one, and also those who are not comfortable speaking, they can write their questions in the chat box. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, sir. So my question is, what if the animal is poisonous, and so in that case, how you handle?
So venomous animals, you need to handle them very carefully. But that's not something that's easy to describe. It's basically a skill that's built, and there are different ways to handle them. We also handle animals as little as needed. We try not to handle, because most of our animals here are for research. So we handle them as little as needed. But a lot of the research that we do is also involves venom, because we focus on snake bite in India, and we're trying to help develop a better anti-venom. So we do have to handle snakes, venomous snakes, almost every day. We have a lot of them. So we have systems for that, and we all know how to handle them.
So, how do we differentiate between poisonous and non-poisonous reptiles?
So, Karthik, we need to, in a place like India, you have to know at least what genus it is, even if you don't know exactly what species, because without that, there's no rule that says, and I think Sevang had his hand up earlier. Sevang, would you like, his or her, I don't know, hand up? Would you like to answer the question?
Sir, my question is regarding. Hello, sir.
Yes. Hi, Rahul.
Yeah. Yes, sir. My question is regarding what is the role of UVA, UVB, the light density, which actually you mentioned earlier.
So UVA and B both help them do a few things. They help metabolize and process calcium. So it's very important for bone development as well. So in fact, many lizards that don't get the right amount of UVA and B will suffer something called metabolic bone disease in their adulthood. Also can't, because of the infestations of parasites and all as well. So you'll also see when you use the right amount of UVA and UVB, you also see a much more vibrant look to the skin. The colors are better. The animal is much more active. They feed much better. It makes a big difference.
Again, sir, if there is an abnormality seen in the reptiles, then we can treat them with the different type of light, right?
Usually once the abnormality sets in, it's too late to just treat that abnormality with the light. Then it usually needs some other intervention as well. The light and all is usually for maintaining their health, not for curing anything. But if they've got the abnormality, it means that they definitely need the light as well. So.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
There are some questions in the chat box. I would like to open a reptile house to public. Can I do it? Exotic reptile house. With the new act, you actually can't do it. You'll need to get CZA approval for that. The Wildlife Protection Act has just been amended. So there are new clauses in it, and I'm also not completely familiar with it. But I would suggest get a good legal advice on that first. There's also, can you explain the population density in the mirror house in the zoos or captive management, especially? Population density in the mirror house. I actually don't know what that means.
Sir, actually, I have one more question, sir.
Okay.
As I'm a student of life science, like after my master in geology, is there any way to be the part of this particular field?
You can, which field do you mean? Reptile research?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's research and conservation. There's various avenues, lots of possibilities. So yeah, I think once you finish your master's, it depends on what you want to do, whether you want to get a job or study further or whatever. There are a lot of research opportunities available, and it's getting better and better in India as well. So nowadays there's a lot more even jobs available. LSeT has lots of opportunities. There's lots of things that you can do. So it depends on what your interest is and where you want to specialize.
For the research purpose especially in reptiles or the animals in life science, like I have to go through the CSIR net, or is there any other way?
So to answer your question, I can only tell you that I have not passed my 12th standard. So I stopped studying when I was very young, and I started working. So you can do anything you want if you applied yourself to it. So there are existing avenues, either academic avenues or job avenues, or you can even make a new avenue of some sort or the other. So, but there's lots and lots of different possibilities.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
I have a doubt.
Yes.
To make one antivenom for one person, on average, how many snakes should be milked?
So it doesn't actually work like that. So basically, venom is taken. So say an antivenom producer, they need to have a certain number of horses and everything. And then they'll buy a certain amount of venom from, say, the Irula Cooperative or whatever in Chennai. And then they take really, really tiny doses of venom. They're sublethal doses. And nowadays, the WHO has even said that even lower doses have to be given, and they inject them in the skin at different parts of the body, so that the horse's immune system starts producing antibodies. So it won't even be one full snake like a cobra. It won't be a full cobra's bite that goes into a horse. It'll be a much, much smaller bit. So yeah, it's you don't have to, and from that horse you'll get many 10 ml vials of antivenom. So the amount of venom is actually very, very small.
Okay.
Peculiar management practice for parasites. There's different things for different parasites. Generally, ectoparasites on something like snakes can be dealt with any mites, for example, can be dealt with vegetable oils. You can use, don't use ivermectin on snakes. It kills them. So it's very important. So that's the problem is, when you say reptiles, like some medicines can be given to some reptiles and not to others. So it's important. It's important to get a vet's go ahead on what you're doing when you're medicating the animals. How many superworms can we give per day for geckos and dragons? That depends on what dragons they are and what geckos. And generally, just superworms is not a good diet. Crickets are better for most of these things. If you're talking about bearded dragons, then as adults, they don't really need much insect food at all. It's primarily leafy stuff. And geckos, also just superworms is not a good diet for them. You have to give them other things as well: crickets, waxworms, silkworms, and superworms and mealworms are really, even when they're gut loaded, they're not a great nutritional source. They'll fill their stomach, but they won't give them all the different things that they need. I think in Madras Crocodile Bank, as I'm a vet student in Namakkal. Kanishkar, you'll have to write to them. They do have they have a volunteer program, so you can write to them and check. Dr. Dhanush has said polyvalent anti-sera. I'm not sure what the question is there. What dewormer we use for reptiles? Again, different deworming for different reptiles. For snakes, we use a combination of fenbendazole and praziquantel. And you can use that for most reptiles as well. Yes. Yeah. Are there any other questions? I think I've finished off all the questions in the chat box.
Okay, one more doubt.
Yes.
Yeah, well, till what class did you get graduated?
So I dropped out of my second PUC, 12th.
Okay. Till 11th you completed it.
Yeah, I passed 11th.
Okay. After that, how did you gather all this reptile knowledge?
I started working when I was 18, and I used to assist scientists from all over the world, actually. So basically, it's, yeah, I think that's how I learned everything. Nowadays, I do research, and nowadays I have students who are doing PhDs who I guide and things like that. So,
Yeah. How old are you?
oh, you're not supposed to ask anyone that question.
Sorry.
But I'm 48. Some more questions in there? Should we maintain photo period while using lights for reptiles? Definitely maintain. I've seen some people adding isopods in the enclosures. Isopods are really good cleanup crew, but not on their own. So isopods and springtails work really good to even deal with a lot of the fecal matter, fungal infections, all that stuff they clean up very good. But those are kept put into mostly bioactive enclosures. Recently, a flying gecko was identified named Gecko misoramensis. I don't know if any of the gecko genus are flying. It's probably Tychozoon misoramensis, and they're gliding things. So gliding, it depends. Gliding geckos don't really need to glide that much. They use it more as an escape. But if you had something like a gliding lizard, a Draco, for example, then that would need a lot of space and a lot of vertical space as well, and place to also be able to be able to, you know, not just vertical space, but glide forward and everything. So Dracos are a tough one to keep. Flying snakes, again, need a lot of space and a lot of exercise. So yeah, so it's different for different things. Geckos, a gliding gecko, you could keep in a much smaller place and it would be okay. If iguanas outdoors, is sunlight enough? If they get sunlight directly, not through glass, then it's fine. But if it's through glass, then all the UV gets filtered out of the from the spectrum. Can we feed birds like quail or chick instead of mice or pinky to ball pythons? I've never tried. I don't know. I think ball pythons can be a bit picky about food sometimes. Their favorite food is gerbils. But you could try quails or chicks and see. Some ball pythons just eat anything. Even you can even hold cut chicken and they'll eat it. So it depends on which one. But I think nutritionally it should be fine.
Sir,
yes.
and lizards same species or different?
I couldn't hear that.
Sir, are dragons and lizards same species or different?
So dragons are all kinds of lizards. Lizards are the big group. Everything from geckos to your garden lizard to chameleons and Komodo dragons, all lizards. Dragons is a common name, a popular name given to some some lizards, but they're not necessarily different from the other lizards. How to measure precipitation? Do you mean outside, or is a rain gauge? Inside the enclosure, you don't really need to measure it.
inside.
Sorry, what was that?
Answer inside enclosure.
You don't really need to measure it. You measure humidity and make sure that the wetness in the space is basically relevant to and okay for the animal. So and if you have an automated sprayer, then you can actually just program it. But otherwise, if you're doing it manually, you'll just quite quickly develop a feel for it. Reticulated python.
So, but
sorry, what
we
was
should
that?
maintain pH. We should maintain pH scale also, like
pH?
an HL water.
For
pH scale for a
which
red
species? So there are a lot of species that the pH won't matter very much, but there are some more aquatic species. For example, tentacle snakes, or um, or file snakes, elephant trunk snakes, that are quite sensitive to pH and salinity as well. So you'll need to measure the pH of water more. But for most turtles, most other snakes and all, it's not particularly important.
Okay, so thank you.
Do we get any infection if we keep ball pythons? No, we don't get any infection from it unless your ball python is really, really sick and there's a lot, and the place you keep it is not clean. Then salmonella would come in. But ball pythons don't carry any diseases that will affect us. There's a question about Malayo-python reticulatus if it escaped from captive habitation. Oh boy, that's a problem. So to start with, also, if you have Malayo-python reticulatus in India, that's not legal. So be careful about that. That should be surrendered to a zoo. Finding it again is a very tough one. You should be able to, I mean, if you look in the area at night, you should be able to find it, but you'll need a large team to keep looking over and over again. So the red-eared slider turtle are now seen in rivers and lakes everywhere. How is this going to affect our flora and fauna? Som, it's already affecting our flora and fauna a lot. Many turtles are out competed in many of the lakes. There are many lakes and ponds and even rivers systems where it's only red-eared sliders now, and Indian pond terrapins and all have basically died out. So this is why it's very, very important for us to be very responsible about the animals that we keep. I think that's the end of the questions.
Does the poison exist in the body of the reptiles even after they're dead or not? The poisonous.
Existence of snakes, is it?
Snakes, no, sir. All reptiles, I can tell.
Yeah, so venom generally lasts for some time, but and definitely shortly after they're dead, snakes can even cause fatality if you get punctured by the fangs and all that. But once the body is rotten and all, now the venom by that time is completely degraded.
Okay, sir.
So
Like
there's
if it is any captive snake is escaped from the cage, means is there possibilities to track them in different method in the wild?
It's not easy. It depends on where you are and what snake, and most often if they've escaped, they're gone. But what I would do is I would keep looking for them in the area both day and night, and then yeah, hope for the best. But you can't really track it that easily, no.
The thing is like 1 month before, that was like pet snake or that is a like zoo snake that we doesn't know. But the security spotted the snake and showed us the photos. But it's
Okay.
actually a reticulated python.
Okay.
So now recently forest department and everyone is searching that snake. Yesterday night some of the security spotted, but after we went, that time the snake is actually escaped again.
Where was this?
It's in Guindy IIT Madras, sir.
Oh boy, okay. Then it's quite possibly from the zoo.
Still we are searching it,
Yeah.
but we can't
It's
see that.
it's very likely that it's from the snake park.
But
So
they told they have a proper count. It doesn't missed from snake park. They told someone is actually petting the snake. Maybe they got Parvesh license and all. So they released it like that. They told into the forest.
okay. All right. It's also possible.
Yeah,
Was it a large one or a small one?
it looks like subadults.
Okay, then I mean, it's possible to find, but I think just tell the security to keep an eye out and not to go near it when they see it, and then call from and while keeping an eye from a distance.
Yeah, the thing is, it's like a big, huge area, so we
Yeah,
can't
exactly.
survey it completely. It's very difficult for us. That's why I'm asking, is there any particular method to track?
I think it might be, since you're there, you might want to just get the help of some Irulas.
Okay.
If you go to the Irula
They
co-op,
came and checked, sir, but they also telling it's difficult to track like that. They are telling.
yeah, if the Irulas can't track it, then probably nobody can track it.
That's the main thing. That's why the forest department is struggling for past 3 weeks.
Okay. Okay. Well, keep an eye out. It might turn up.
Okay.
Good luck.
Yeah, sure, sir. Thank you.
So, Soham has said Rhabdophis plumbicolor is now considered semi-venomous. It's actually not now considered, Soham. It's always been not semi-venomous, it's venomous. So the venom we don't think the venom affects us, but there's no research done on it. But there's no such thing as semi-venomous and mildly venomous and all. It's either venomous or non-venomous. And not all venomous snakes affect, all the venom of all venomous snakes doesn't affect us. There are a lot of snakes who are actually venomous, but the venom doesn't affect humans or sometimes even mammals. So, yeah, it's always been known to be venomous. It's a rare-fanged colubrid. How do you deworm reptiles? So, Sibi, that's done by different methods. Ideally, if you can put the deworming into food, that's the least stressful method of doing it. But otherwise, you have to assist feed or tube it into the mouth or whatever. Is there any licensing to be done before starting a breeding facility for reptiles? I don't know, but you should definitely check on that. Also, the Wildlife Protection Act is changing, and it's also beginning to include a lot of exotic species. So please make sure that you're clear about what the law says and that you are also not doing anything illegal. Any first aid medicine if we see our iguanas feel ill suddenly? And that's a very, very broad question. Illness could be any kinds of things. And just a first aid medicine based on that it could be all kinds of things from a simple small infection to just a couple of cold days that's causing them to be slightly sluggish to something very serious. So ideally, if you don't have any vets nearby, I would suggest getting in touch with some vets who you can speak with about this. And it's for any animal, it's always good to be able to have medical support as well. Can we mix different species of snakes in the same box? That's actually never a good idea. Even if some snakes are fine with being with other snakes, mixing species very often goes wrong. So it's better not to. Can human saliva digest poison of reptiles, especially spitting cobra? Theoretically, yes. It's not just the saliva. So venom is a protein. So it breaks down inside our digestive tract. But it should not be done because all you need is the smallest ulcer, smallest boil, smallest cut, and venom can actually go into your bloodstream, and then it'll be very, very problematic. So why not crossbreed snake is seen? They do crossbreed some snakes. It's personally, I think that's a really bad idea to do. I think that having snakes should be as close to the natural ones as possible. So please repeat the topic of semi-venomous. Yeah, so basically snakes have venom, even the ones that can't affect us. There are many snakes that have venom, but the venom that they have doesn't affect us. That doesn't mean that they're not venomous. It just means that they have a different venom. And that venom might affect something else. It might affect fish or scorpions or other reptiles, but it might not affect mammals. So that doesn't mean that they're non-venomous. It just means that the venom is different. So when you ask if a snake is venomous or not, the answer is either yes or no. But whether the snake is dangerous or not, then that's also a yes or no. So, but it doesn't mean that every snake that has venom is dangerous. So please, okay. Anacondas evolved from python. No, they actually evolved separately and in completely different places as well. So pythons are all old world and anacondas are new world animals. So it's not just that. So animals evolved. It's not just where they. So just because there is a dense forest doesn't mean that there should be anacondas. The anacondas had an ancestor, and when. So you know that everything was all one landmass at one point, and then it broke apart, right? So, but that was millions of years ago. So when the ancestors of the animals that are on the different continents now were on those continents at that time, they then evolved slowly differently. So that's why, I mean, anacondas, the South America, Central and South America was separated from most of the rest of the world for a long time. So they just evolved there and didn't evolve anywhere else. Do pythons eat insects like superworms? No. Well, even if they do, it wouldn't be good for them. Okay, I think that's it for the questions.
Sir, what can we do if we are constricted by the constrictors like python, anacondas?
One thing, if it's such a large animal, it should ideally not be handling it alone. Have one other person with you at all times.
How can we release ourselves if we are already constricted?
That's a very varied question. Depends on the size of the snake, how you are constricted. Does it have you around the neck? Do you have free arms? All those things. But my suggestion is that if you're asking a question like this, don't keep large constrictors until you're able to handle them properly, and then set in protocols to do it. So basically, don't get into that situation. Okay.
I'm considering that there is not any other question. So to take this session forward, I would like to thank you, sir, for presenting your insights on the topic given captive management of reptiles. And sir, the insights you have shared with us were truly valuable and were all thoroughly engaged by our presentation. It was a pleasure to have you with us, and we hope you enjoyed the experience as much as we did. We all are grateful by the knowledge and inspiration you shared with us. Your contribution to the event was invaluable, and we could not have asked for a more engaging and informative speaker. Thank you for your time and for sharing your expertise with us. We hope to have this opportunity to work with you again in the future. And also, I would like to thank all the participants for being present over here and making this session a very interactive session. We would also like to inform everyone that we are having a hands-on training program for all the animal enthusiasts to make their career in the animal care and management. would like to request everyone, like we are sharing you a feedback form link. So please everyone try to fill that feedback form, as this help us to grow. And also you will be able to get the certificate after filling the feedback form. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Good night.